Joel Klatt loves the Ducks.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Dan Lanning in a 5-year snapshot. Big expectations. Big expectations. And thoughts on Oregon's offense coordinator, Will Stein, and the Penn State game. A good development could be coming on that front. That is all in today's show, which is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. So, I like Joel Klatt. I don't agree with everything that he says, certainly, most notably surrounding Oregon when he discussed the Ohio State game on October 12th. He was adamant that Jeremiah Smith's offensive pass interference was not a push-off. That's just one example of where Joel and I disagree. But overall, I think Joel is a really good voice for college football. If you're looking for a national show and you're not going to listen to Locked On College Football, I hear that guy's pretty good. Joel is someone that I highly recommend. And so he came out with his preseason top 25 post-spring ball, has Oregon number 4 in the country. That is actually higher than I would put them. There are two teams in particular that I'm surprised. Maybe a third. There might be a third that I'd be surprised at as well. I would in no way have Oregon outside the top 10 in the preseason this year because of how much talent they have on the roster. But I've been beating this drum all spring. The lack of experience does make me wonder, are they going to be able to reach that potential right away? They have the schedule to do it. Their win total, according to our friends at FanDuel, is 10.5 for a reason. And that's that the schedule works out really favorably. So, Klatt's top 25, we'll just focus on the top 10 here, goes like this. Penn State is number 1. My everydayers listen to Monday's show, and I kind of gassed up Penn State because there's good reason. By the way, since that show, Penn State went out and added Amari Campbell, linebacker from North Carolina. Darn good football player, had 45 tackles, 6.5 sacks, and a 72 PFF grade last year for the Tar Heels. So Penn State's roster just keeps on getting better. And I love that Joel had the stomach to go out and say my post-spring preseason top 25 has Penn State at number 1. Over number 2 Texas, number 3 Ohio State, number 4 Oregon. And I think that's a lot of love. And I'll get to why he has that love in a moment and kind of what that means for the season. But he's got them ahead of the number 5 team he's got is Clemson. I'm very surprised at that one. Very, very surprised at that one. Because Clemson has basically the same team as last year. They bring in Tom Allen, the defensive coordinator from Penn State, who I think is good, but wanted to get a different situation. And then Penn State upgraded their defensive coordinator to get Jim Knowles from Ohio State. Clemson at 5 with Cade Klubnik going into his 3rd year starting at quarterback and his 4th year overall with the Tigers, and another year with the same trio, quarterback, head coach, offensive coordinator, which is one of my favorite tandems to look at when evaluating college football teams. He's also got Oregon ahead of Notre Dame, national runners-up last year. LSU, I get that one. Georgia, boy, I don't know about that. Alabama, I get that one. And Illinois. Having Illinois at 10, also, I respect that he's got that he's just got the guts to put those teams in there, because those are not traditionally teams. Illinois in the top 10 sounds ridiculous, right? It's so not. So not. They bring back the quarterback and a bunch of their roster from last year. They lost their running back, McCray, to Georgia in the transfer portal. It was a really good pickup for the Bulldogs. I think Brett Bielema will overall be fine. But bringing this back to where Oregon fits into the fold, I think I would probably have them in the 6 or 7 range. The 3 teams I'm surprised, 2.5 we'll say, that Klatt had Oregon over were Clemson and Notre Dame. Clemson are going to be the favorites in the ACC. I'll be surprised if they don't win the ACC, earn themselves a bye in the college football playoff this year. They should be a really, really good team. And Dabo Swinney is still a really good coach. Marcus Freeman is one of the best young coaches in all of college football. And yes, Dan Lanning is up there as well. Freeman is more proven at this time as he's appeared in a national championship game. And that roster that the Irish had last year, from a composite talent standpoint, had no business getting to the national title game and beating the SEC champion Georgia Bulldogs in the fashion in which they did, but they did. So I'm surprised at that. I'm not surprised Oregon's ahead of LSU. I would 100% have that. Georgia, though, there's just that it was many years ago, but 49-3, Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, the history of mentors against mentees in the coaching realm. It took Kirby Smart a long time to beat Nick Saban. We'll see if Dan Lanning ever gets another crack at Kirby Smart. That would probably only wind up in a playoff situation, but not the least feasible thing that you could see happening in there. So the reason that Klatt stated he's got Oregon at number 4 is he loves Dante Moore. And he's all in on Dante Moore. And look, I love Dante Moore. He was number 1 quarterback coming out of the class of 2023 for a reason. But this is where I looked at Klatt's rankings and thought, I think Oregon's a touch overrated. Because when you're going into a season, there's potential and there's expectation. Expectations are built on things you know. Potential is based on just that exact word. It's based on things that can happen, but we haven't seen it yet. Dante Moore can be a great quarterback. Dante Moore could be an NFL quarterback. I have no qualms about somebody making that particular claim. He is in an incredibly quarterback-friendly system with a lot of really good receivers, with a tight end who could be an early round NFL draft pick, with an offensive line that might have an early round draft pick at left tackle in Isaiah World, and maybe 1 or 2 other selections depending on how this particular season plays out. He's got a lot around him. He has not actually played very much football. I don't think it's very likely Dante Moore goes to the NFL after the 2025 season. The number of quarterbacks that go, Joe Burrow, by the way, everybody forgets this because they just remember 2019 LSU, which for my money is the best college football team in the history of the sport. I would put them up against the early, 2000 Miami teams or some of the great Nebraska teams or some Alabama teams. You can't stop them. The NFL can't stop Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. No college team ever, I don't care who you had, was stopping Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. That's just not a thing. So Joe Burrow popped to win the Heisman and the national championship after transferring from Ohio State. He popped in his second season. And I think that is a very reasonable, it's a more reasonable expectation for Oregon fans to have. That's where my head is at. I expect Dante Moore to be good this year. Joe Burrow's 2018 stats are not bad. His 2019 stats are legendary. Second year in the system, second year as a full-time starter. That's where I'm at with Dante Moore. He didn't get a full season at UCLA. They did not manage that situation correctly whatsoever. It was there wasn't a clearly defined vision or plan. When Oregon rolled out Justin Herbert in 2016, they went with the veteran Dakota Prukop, who came from the FCS ranks. Didn't work out. Wasn't going as well. He wasn't terrible, but they weren't winning enough, and he wasn't doing enough to make you think, we should run with him the rest of the year. Once they got to that point, they committed to Justin Herbert and just said, we're going to let you make all the mistakes in the world. We're not going to focus that much on winning this season. We've got to have a plan at quarterback that sets us up for the future. That was the right approach. You never want to be caught in between. Reminds me of a number of my sports teams, the Blazers and the Mariners most notably. Or Blazers and the Seahawks more than and the Mariners too. Don't be stuck in neutral. Put it in drive or put it in reverse. Don't leave it in neutral. So I don't think Dante Moore had the best situation, and I didn't like how it was handled at UCLA. But even highly rated recruits who are transfer quarterbacks that have sat for a while, I think Joel is a little bit overzealous on I love Dante Moore. I do too. I think 2026 is going to be the year that you realize that full potential. I think we'll see glimpses, flashes, and stretches of it this season. Every quarterback has to deal with growing pains. So that's why I was surprised that Klatt had Oregon as high as he did. When I heard him explain the reasoning, I thought, okay, I get it. I see it a little bit differently. I think Oregon is a double-digit win team this year. I think they're making the playoff. I don't expect them to be contending for a national championship the same way that they were able to a year ago. But I'm here for look, I'm here to be wrong about it. I just think that to expect Dante Moore to just be the best version of himself immediately right away in his first full season starting, I think that is asking a heck of a lot. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all of that good stuff. And keep sending the hot takes. I love the hot takes. Got a couple of them to evaluate that talk about Dan Lanning in the future. Are they even hot takes, though? You're going to have to stick around to find out. First, this episode brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV. Did you know it's also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play, just like that. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. So, what are you waiting for? All-in-one entertainment? That's what you should be looking for. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Check them out at Amazon Fire TV. Second segment tips are important. Always have been, always will be. Let's get to some hot takes. I love this rolling segment here on the show. You send me hot takes, and I use Spencer's scale of agreement to tell you where I'm at. 1 being absolutely not. I gave out a 0 once, but that's not really going to happen again. 10 is I'm in lockstep agreement, or I've said it before. So here's one. Blazer Duck sent in a couple of these hot takes. Dan Lanning will land the #1 recruiting class in the country at least one time within the next 5 years. What do you think? 7. I think 7, not just because of Monica from Friends, but the reason I'm in a solid level of agreement with that is twofold. And I think about 6 months ago, this number might have actually been even higher. Number 1, Dan Lanning, when he and his staff have had a full cycle, right? Not counting the 2022 class where they, came in December of 21, and then they brought in Bo Nix and some other guys and such. But, the high school recruiting class kind of fell apart, and I think it was like it was inside the top 25, which I remember saying at the time was indeed good. They have not yet pulled a class outside of the top 10. Haven't done that yet. 2023, top 10. 24, top 5. 25, top 5. So their ability to set that as the baseline expectation has been pretty darn impressive. So if top 10 is your baseline standard of success, this is a staff that has shown, and not every coach, not every staff is like this, by the way. Even those that have come through Oregon, I think Scott Frost famously said a while back how hard it is to recruit in Eugene. Well, he might have just not been a super big time recruiter. And that also might be evidenced by the fact he brought Alex Grinch in to be his defense coordinator, which is one of the most insane things. He's at UCF again to be a head coach, for those that were wondering. And Alex Grinch, USC legend, is his defensive coordinator. Why? I don't really know. So anyway, bringing it back to what I was talking about, the way that this staff has recruited, everybody that covers recruiting, even closer than I do, has said consistently, yeah, staff cares. Yeah, the staff works. Okay, so that's first thing. The mindset, the drive to go out there and generate top classes exists from the staff. Then you ask, well, what sort of resources do they have? I think we all know the answer to that one. The recruiting budget, the NIL budget, anything that you could possibly need. It's all right there. The only perhaps, and this is why it's good that a lot of visits take place in the summer, maybe the worst part about recruiting to Oregon, other than the geography, is the weather. You bring a guy in and it's 52 degrees and raining. It's maybe not the best day for a visit. But a lot of visits take place in the summer. It's usually pretty nice. So, plenty take place in the fall, where it's also usually pretty nice. Thankfully, not a lot of visits happen from like November to March. That wouldn't be the best way to showcase Oregon's campus and whatnot. But the relationship building, the facilities, the commitment, all of that stuff is all there. So if top 10 is your baseline standard for success, then kind of like, my baseline standard year in and year out in a 12-team playoff for Oregon is you make the playoff. That's a yearly expectation. And on the recruiting trail, you pull a top 10 class. That should happen every year. If it doesn't, that's a regression, step down, there can be a lot of circumstances make me feel one way or the other about it, but overall, that's where my head is at. So when you couple that with results that are continuing to grow and progress, Dan Lanning's teams have won more games than the year before every season. It was 10 wins, 12 wins, 13 wins. Now you've got a Big Ten championship. Now you've got to win over Ohio State. You keep cycling those things annually. You keep piling them on. People are going to take notice. Oregon already has an established brand. Recruiting people like Brian, who comes here on the show all the time, talks about how there are kids in middle of the nowhere Georgia, back on the East Coast. There's something in their brain that clicks with Oregon. And yeah, it's the Nike uniform connection sort of deal. That's a good thing. That's a good thing because it's a positive relationship people can put in their heads. So when you put all that together, yeah, I get to a 7 on this particular take, Blazer Duck, because I think the infrastructure's there. This isn't easy, by the way. This isn't going to be Oregon's going to pull a bunch of number one classes, but they've had the top ranked recruiting class throughout the course of a cycle before. They even had that earlier this cycle. It was very, very early on. But, back when Willie Taggart got hired, Oregon had the number one class for a while until that whole thing fell apart. But the recruiting standard has been set. I don't think it's unrealistic whatsoever. Am I expecting it? Not necessarily, but I definitely won't be shocked if they have a class where they get there. Because when you continue to add results on the field, that's really the biggest differentiator between Oregon and the other programs they go up against. Georgia can say we've won national championships. Alabama can say we've won national championships. Texas can say we won a national championship back in 2005. That's the only thing that Oregon's missing results-wise on the field. So I think it's all there. I will say it is harder when USC recruits like this. Not impossible. Definitely not impossible. It is significantly tougher. There is a noticeable difference between recruiting 2 years ago and recruiting now because of what USC is doing and how much Oregon has dipped into Southern California to pull kids out of that footprint. That used to be all USC. Trojans, of course, trying to recapture that back. It's going well so far for them in the class of 2026. They have the number one class. They have 27 kids committed. I talked about it the other day on Locked On College Football with Brian if you want to hear more on that. So, yeah, I'm a 7 on the first one. Another one from Blazer Duck. Hot take. As long as Dan Lanning is Oregon's coach, Oregon will be playing in the Big Ten championship game 75% or more of the time. Okay. 3. This is a 3. If that happens, Lanning would be on a heck of a run. But what you have to consider is not just that Penn State is a really good program. Oh, I didn't even mention Ohio State. Right. It's their oh, wait. When Michigan is operating full force, they're on a national championship level. And they like Oregon. I think Oregon's a better team than Michigan this year. In 2026, I think Michigan's going to be really good. So every single year, you have got 4 elite programs, tier 1, playoff or bust expectation caliber programs. Michigan can fluctuate a bit. We saw that last year, but that was also amidst a coaching change. Once things stabilize for Sherrone Moore a little, they're expecting to be in the Big Ten championship every other year. They won it three or four straight years going into this past season when, of course, Oregon went and won it. Now, you didn't say win the Big Ten championship game, but you still said get in. But you've got, when you factor in scheduling and how much that rolls around, Oregon's never going to play all 3 of those teams in the same year. Rob Mullins would chew somebody's ear off in an unpleasant manner on the phone. if they looked at their schedule and said, wait, we're going to Penn State and Michigan and hosting Ohio State? What? Like that's not going to happen. So what that creates is tiebreaker scenarios where you can't always rely upon, like, you know, or you have to win 11 games to guarantee you get in. 10 games, maybe you can get there. But basically you're saying 75% or more of the time, Oregon's going to win 11 or 12 games in the regular season. I have high expectations for the program as long as Dan Lanning is in charge. That's pretty high. So 6 times in an 8-year span, 3 times in a 4-year span, no. I don't expect that. Would love to see it, of course. Do not expect that. And it has nothing to do with Oregon. It's just that other programs, it turns out, have money, have good coaches, and are capable of winning a lot of football games. So, yeah, I'll put that one at a 3 because making it 3 times in a 4-year span would be pretty incredible. I think they've got a solid shot to do it this year, but they're not in control of that, aside from the Penn State game. Now, if they beat Penn State, I'll talk about that game more later. But let's say they lose to Penn State this year. They could go 11-1. They could miss the Big Ten championship game. They don't play Michigan. They don't play Ohio State. Those teams, of course, play each other. Let's say Ohio State finally beats Michigan again, and Penn State beats Oregon. Your Big Ten championship is Ohio State and Penn State, and Oregon could be sitting there at 11-1 on the outside looking in of the Big Ten championship game. So there are just a lot of variables there, and I haven't even mentioned USC getting to a conference championship level. Maybe a Nebraska or Michigan State could pop into the fold every now and then. Yeah, that's a hot take, all right. But that's the nature of the segment. You send hot takes. No fun to evaluate cold takes, but you know, I'll do that too. So send your takes in all the time. YouTube comments, Twitter, become an insider, all that good stuff. A couple more questions came in. Speaking of the Penn State game, I heard something that would be really good for Oregon. First, this episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. All-in-one convenience is what they're all about. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals, which is pretty neat. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. monarchmoney.com. So a little birdie told me that there is the potential for the Oregon-Penn State game this year on September 27th in Happy Valley to be on NBC and be a nighttime whiteout game. Now, the Penn State whiteout would be epic. It is epic every time it happens. The fact that, you know, the Penn State-Ohio State game last year was a big noon kickoff, travesty. Just a travesty for college football. The whiteout is one of the most electric environments in the country. It rocks. It's just awesome. The spectacle is amazing. It is peak college football lore. And so I want Oregon to play in that environment rather than a big noon kickoff for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, that's not as serious. Oregon uniforms contrasted with a Penn State whiteout. Oh, now we're talking. Now we are talking. Second reason, though. Penn State is at home off a bye. Oregon is making a cross-country road trip. In no universe do I want Oregon to play a 9 a.m. Pacific time kickoff. Not because it doesn't work out for me. It probably would. That game is far less likely to conflict with my Southern Utah broadcasting schedule, so it'd be easier from that vantage point. But though I made clear my thoughts earlier this week, I don't expect Oregon to win the game. I still want them to. And there's no way it is anything but another advantage for Penn State if that's a big noon kickoff. 9 o'clock Pacific time. The West Coast teams that did that this year, I mean, all teams in the Big Ten that traveled multiple time zones didn't do well in the regular season. And the big noon kickoffs in particular, it was ugly. It was off and ugly. Now, that usually involved teams that were not as good as Oregon will be this year. But I would love for that to be the case. That has not been confirmed, but I think NBC picked up the game, which tends to mean that they're going to go nighttime whiteout, and they should. They should. It should be College game day. It could be awesome. Speaking of the Penn State game, Jalen sent this one in. Was listening to you on Locked On Ducks yesterday, thinking about how the Oregon-Penn State game will go. I can't help but think about Oregon-Michigan State in 2015 with Vernon Adams. I think this game will look very similar. Thoughts? Love the show and appreciate all your insights. Appreciate you as well. So, by the way, as I get this question, Sir A.C. Chapman, I'm going to move your question to Monday's show so I can give it its full attention. But I love that cut. So I remember that game pretty well. I was at a watch party with some friends, and Vernon Adams overthrowing, I think it was Byron Marshall, wide open for a touchdown, ended up costing Oregon the game. That game was a dogfight. I believe the final score of that game was 31-28. And indeed it was. So that was a back and forth, grinded out slugfest of a football game. And Vernon Adams threw a couple picks. He was hurt in that game. He had the left-handed pass. Like, it was crazy. The environment was awesome. It was a top 10 showdown, which is absolutely what Oregon Penn State should be. If I'd been hosting the show at that time, I probably wouldn't have expected Oregon to win. Now, I did because I was just a fan and I was in high school and thought Oregon would win most of the time. And, how good can Michigan State be? Well, Michigan State was really good that year. I believe they went to the college football playoff. I could be wrong. But that game was the return trip from the 2014 game that helped propel Oregon to the college football playoff. And, that Michigan State team, Connor Cook was the quarterback. He threw for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. They ran the ball a lot. Michigan State ran the ball for 197 yards on 5.3 yards a carry. Oregon struggled to run the football, and Vernon Adams almost made enough plays, but Oregon was 2 of 6 on 4th down, didn't run the ball super well, had a couple turnovers. Like, all of those things, I do think were a product of being on the road, of being in what was an awesome environment. And by the way, Oregon's uniforms looked sick. They had that sparkle on the white helmet, the Fighting Ducks logo. I think they went white, black, if I remember correctly. I know they had the white helmets, and I'm pretty sure they had the white jerseys too. But yeah, I think there are a lot of similarities between this game and that one. It's just going to be, and Oregon, of course, made a really, really good effort and almost darn near won the football game. But end of the day, they didn't. And Oregon was down 2 possessions the year before, came back to win at home. You can't ever overlook the importance of home field. Oregon's traveling even further to Happy Valley than they did to East Lansing, Michigan. So, it's just, there are a lot of things working against the Ducks in that game. But give me a 9.5 on Spencer's scale of agreement there, that it's a 2015 Michigan State game. I think it could be hard fought, 4-quarter slugfest. I mean, 31-28, not a slugfest, but first to 30 wins, tough battle, turnovers huge, tight game. Yeah, I can see all that stuff. I had not heard that comparison until now. I think that is a great poll, and Oregon didn't win that. I think losing by a field goal, if you told me that right now, I wouldn't be shocked. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.